Hello, good people, and welcome back to another math video. This one on adding and subtracting fractions. The first thing that we need to know when we're dealing with a fraction is that the top number is a numerator, the bottom number is a denominator. When we're going to add and subtract fractions, we need to have what is called a common denominator. And that means that the denominators in the two different fractions are the same. There are a number of different methods you can use to figure out a common denominator, but here's the one we talked about in class. Take the larger of the two denominators, in this case an 8, and say to yourself, if I count by 8s, do I come up with a number that my other denominator can go into? For example, if I start counting by 8s, my first number is 8. Can 2 go into 8? Yes, it can, 4 times. So that means I don't have to go any further. I can just use 8 as my denominator. Now for the first number, it doesn't change. 3/8. But my second number is going to change. Let's see. How do I go from halves to eighths? How do I go from 2 to 8? Well, I multiplied by 4. So I need to do that same thing to my top number. I need to multiply by 4. So now 1/2 becomes 4/8. 3/8 plus 4/8. Well, my denominator is going to stay the same when I'm adding and subtracting fractions, so I'm just adding the top. 3 plus 4 is 7. So in the end, 3/8 plus 1/2 is 7/8. Sometimes that first method of figuring out a denominator seems a little difficult, so here's another method that works too. 1/8 plus 2/7. Well, if we think about that previous method, I would say, okay, well, 8 is my bigger denominator, so I'm going to count by eighths and see which one 7 goes into. 8. Does 7 go into that? No. Okay, next one, 16. 7 go into that? No. Okay, next one, 8, 16, 24. Does 7 go into that? No. Alright, next one. 8, 16, 24, 32. Does 7 go into that? No. Man, I just seem like I'm getting nowhere with this. You can multiply your two denominators together, and that will always give you a common denominator. It doesn't necessarily give you the easiest one in terms of working in lowest terms, but it will always give you a common denominator. So in this case, let's do it. 8 times 7 is 56. So I'm going to be using 56 as my common denominator. So now I just need to change these fractions. Let's see. How do I go from 8 to 56? I had to multiply by 7. So I'll need to do that to my top number. 7 times 1 is 7. Alright, so now for my other fraction, how do I go from 7 to 56? I had to multiply by 8. So I'll have to do that to my top number here. 2 times 8, and that would be 16. So now I have 7/56 plus 16/56, and I get a pretty weird number here. So 16 plus 7 is 23, and I get 23/56 for that one. Alright, but what about negative numbers? What about negative numbers with fractions? Oh no, that's okay. You already know the rules. Check it out. In this example, we have negative 1/3 plus 1/4. So our first step is going to be to find some common denominators. So I could count by 4s and see which number I get to that 3 can go into. Let's see, 4, does 3 go into that? No. 8, does 3 go into that? No. 12, does 3 go into that? Yes. And this method would also work if we multiplied them together, because 3 times 4 is 12. So I'm going to be working in twelfths. So let's see. 3 times 4 is 12. So I'll do the same here. 1 times 4 is 4. So I have negative 4/12 plus, in this case, 4 times 3 is 12. So 1 times 3 is going to be 3. So I have negative 4/12 plus 3/12. Well, when I'm adding when I'm adding numbers and one of them is negative, I have to subtract and keep the sign of the larger digit. So, I really have 4/12 minus 3/12, which would be 1/12. 4/12 minus 3/12 is going to be 1/12. And then I have to look back and I'd say, which of these was my larger digit? And it was the 4, and that was negative. So in the end, I'm going to say my final answer is negative 1/12. Okay, we'll do one more of those with the negative. This time, 9/10 plus negative 1/2. So again, my first step is going to be to find that common denominator. So I could take my larger denominator, this time a 10, and say, does 2 go into that? Does 2 go into 10? Yes, it does. So I can use tenths right off the bat. That means I don't even have to change the first one. Love it. Easy. So, from 1/2 to tenths. Well, what do I have to do to go from 2 to 10? Multiply by 5. Do the same up top. Multiply by 5. Don't forget my negative sign. Okay, so now I have 9/10 plus a negative 5/10. Well, when I'm adding and subtracting and I have a negative on one of my numbers, that means I'm going to subtract and take the sign of the bigger digit. So 9/10 minus 5/10 is 4/10. Now I just have to figure out my sign. Which of these is the bigger digit? The 9/10 or the 5? And it's the 9, and that's positive. So there's my final answer, 4/10. Okay, there you go. A quick little video to review adding and subtracting fractions. Make sure you get that common denominator. Try either method, either picking the larger denominator and kind of skip counting by that number until we find one that they both go into, or just multiplying them together. And sometimes that just gives you a big common denominator that you have to reduce later, but it works. So, watch the video a few times, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.